When it comes to affordability and performance in the competitive world of gaming PCs, iBUYPOWER consistently stands out as a top contender. But in this review, we're going to give you an entirely transparent and in-depth look at the iBUYPOWER Slate Mesh. This configuration that we have here for you comes with an Intel i7-14700F CPU and 5070 GPU. I'm going to quickly take you through the unboxing and what's included, gaming and creator benchmarks, design and build quality, the internals, thermals, fan noise, overall ease of use, pricing breakdowns, and comparing its price to performance ratios against the competition, and my overall top likes and dislikes. If you ultimately decide not to get this PC after anything that I say in this video, just keep watching because I'm also going to be sharing with you some alternative PCs that I recommend for every budget. I'm going to include links down below for all the products that I mentioned, as well as tag directly on this video or using a QR code if you're watching on a TV. I guarantee that by the end of this video, you will know if this PC is right for you or not. But if you still have any questions after watching this entire video, just shoot me a comment, and if you're publicly subscribed, I guarantee a personal response. All right, now let's rewind back into the past real quick and check out what came in the box. First thing included with this PC is a Chimera KM7 RGB keyboard and mouse. Quality-wise, I'd say they're pretty decent considering they're free, and they also look pretty cool in the dark with all that RGB lighting. Then inside this little bag, we've got a graphics card quick start guide, a warranty card, a very large Velcro zip tie, Wi-Fi antenna, SATA cables, GPU adapter cable, and your typical massive power cable. Then there's a piece of paper warning new PC users about the initial setup, but I'd say it's pretty basic for most of you though. Now, design-wise, yes, this one is very similar to that Slate 9 that I just reviewed not too long ago. The main difference being that front ventilation. This one has less of the fans blocked by the glass, but it also doesn't have that small side strip of ventilation like the Slate 9. I do like the look of the Slate 9 a little better, but technically this one is better for airflow. These front three fans are intakes, and then we've only got one exhaust fan on the back. We also have a fan in here in the middle dedicated to cooling down the heat sink for our CPU. And then that's it. No more fans on the top. We're mostly relying on this back exhaust and the heat rising out the top naturally. To the right of our CPU, the RAM they included in this PC is a Pacer Panther 5200 MHz RGB DDR5 RAM. We've got two 16 GB sticks for a total of 32. But of course, the most important part of this PC is that GPU. This one, an Asus Prime 5070 GPU, which by itself normally costs about $550. I'd say it's a pretty good choice for this build, and the design isn't too bad either. Then just above our GPU is our main drive, which our operating system and everything else is installed on. The one they included in this build is a 1TB AGI SSD, and unfortunately, you do have to remove that GPU just to access that SSD to replace it. You also only get one extra SSD slot in here in the bottom corner if you want to add more in the future, and that also requires you to remove that GPU first. You can see behind the GPU, we technically have 3 more PCIe slots, but only the bottom one is actually usable with the GPU installed on the smaller motherboard, which the one that they included in this build is an Asus Prime B760M. But then swinging around to the back, we do have 2 additional slots for 2.5-inch SATA SSDs, but unfortunately no pre-installed cage for traditional 3.5-inch mechanical hard drives. And then lastly, on the bottom right, we've got a non-modular RAID Max 750 watt power supply. And then overall for the ports, between the front and the back, we've got a decent amount of USB-A's with a total of 8, but unfortunately only one USB-C. Now, as far as the software goes, for those of you who like to dive deep into fine-tuning and tweaking performance, there's plenty of options within the BIOS to do all of that. But if you prefer a more user-friendly and easy experience, then you're going to want to download something called the Armory Crate app. On the dashboard, you can see all of your real-time stats and control your fan profiles. In the Aura Sync section, you do have a few basic effects for your RGB animations on the case, but a pretty disappointing amount of options. At least with this PC though, everything works flawlessly right out of the box. I'm honestly tired of how many PCs make that so difficult. If you do want more options though, then I recommend downloading a free app called Signal RGB. I tested it with this PC and it worked really well. And it kind of feels like it has almost infinite options. Now when it came to the fan noise, in silent mode we did have fans that were quieter than average, but with actual gaming in turbo mode we did get fans that were a bit louder than average. However, standard mode was quite a bit quieter, and we also saw no difference in performance when we left it at that setting. This is what that sounded like. As far as the thermals, you can see in our thermal imaging time-lapse from computer off to full-on gaming that as usual we do get some heat building up on the glass right next to the GPU and the back area on the top. Taking off the glass panel and moving in closer, we can see a little bit more in detail where some of those hotter areas are. Mostly from that GPU and also on that SSD drive there in the back. The large majority of our thermal testing was spent in actual gameplay though. These were our CPU temperatures for several different games at 1080p. Very cool overall, and looking at the averages, you can see that it's one of the coolest that we've seen yet at this resolution. Pretty pleased to see this actually, considering there's no top exhaust fans. And moving into 4K gaming, we also saw satisfying temperatures across the board. We're focusing on the GPU temperatures here because high resolution gaming puts a lot more strain on the GPU and eases up on the CPU. And you can see in this overall chart that compared to the rest, it's one of the coolest here as well, with average temperatures in the mid to upper 50s. Now for one of my favorite parts, performance and gaming benchmarks. And up next, the most important part of this review, the price to performance ratios. For Cinebench R23, which simulates its 3D rendering power, you can see that we did not get a very high score here compared to the rest. A non-K Intel i7 CPU is just not going to give you the power that you want for rendering. We got similar results in our other main 3D rendering software as well. Our V-Ray performance score again shows this PC to be in the lower range for this kind of task. For 3D Mark, which is a pretty good benchmark used to predict a computer's overall gameability, we got an overall score of just a little over 20,000. This is honestly pretty low and way less than that iBUYPOWER Slate 9 that we just reviewed. Also, that one just dropped in price, and we're going to talk about that here in a sec. For actual gameplay though, these were our average and 1% low FPS numbers that we got for several games at their highest preset settings at 1080p, 1440p, and 4K gaming resolutions. I wouldn't say this is bad, but averaging all of those games together and comparing with the rest, you can see that overall it's quite a bit lower than that iBUYPOWER Slate 9, with 37% higher FPS than this one at 1080p. Same thing at 1440p with 36% better FPS, and then even more so at 4K with over 40% better performance than this one. And this leads me now to the price to performance ratios. That iBUYPOWER Slate 9 that I recently reviewed has now dropped in price to $1,500. Meanwhile, this one that we're reviewing today is just under $1,800 for worse performance. And you can see that as we go from 1080p, 1440p to 4K gaming, it continues to move up the charts as a better and better deal when you consider its dollar per FPS ratio. It's actually now the best value at 1440p and 4K out of all the current gen gaming PCs that I've reviewed. As of right now, this iBUYPOWER Slate Mesh is actually not that great of a deal compared to several others with similar performance. So for this recommendations for every budget section, I'm actually going to start with that iBUYPOWER Slate 9. I recommend you get this one over the one that I just reviewed today, as it's got better performance and costs hundreds of dollars less. If you need to be closer to $1,000, then I would go with this Skytech Shadow that I recently reviewed with the 9600X CPU and 9060 XT GPU. You can see in the charts that it's not a good 4K gaming PC, but it was pretty decent at 1440p and 1080p. If you can actually afford more with a budget over $2,000, then I would get the CyberPower Gamer Supreme for just over $2,300. You can see in the charts that you'll get about a 14% boost in FPS at 1080p on top of a much more appealing three-sided glass panel design, closer to $3,000, and I would get this version of the Skytech King 95 with a 9800X 3D and 5080 GPU. I really liked that one when I reviewed it, and this one is quite a bit more powerful than that one, closer to $4,000, and I actually recommend the Corsair Vengeance A i7-500 with a 5080 GPU. Another great one that I reviewed in that range is the Skytech Legacy 4. For much more options, click up here in the corner to check out my top 20 recommended gaming PCs of the year. Overall, this iBUYPOWER Slate Mesh that I just reviewed today at this price range just doesn't cut it compared to some of the other gaming PCs with similar performance. I'd say don't get this one, get that very similar looking iBUYPOWER Slate 9 with better performance and a much better price. But if you do decide to purchase this PC or any of the others that I mentioned, then please remember to use my affiliate links in the comments and description below, or tag directly on this video, or using a QR code if you're watching on a TV, as I get a small commission at no cost to you for every single purchase made. And it's actually a major factor in keeping this channel going and getting better and better for you. Also, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications turned on to stay up to date with all of my latest tech and gaming PCs. Yes, PC gaming is awesome, but please do not let it consume your life. What helps me mentally is getting outside, staying active, eating healthy, and spending more time with my family. Also, studies have shown that reading the Bible 4 times a week can massively improve your mental health, and I can attest to that. And if you are a little skeptical about the Bible, then check out the book or documentary, The Case for Christ.